There was a time when all you had to do was turn on the radio or flip through a magazine. And there they were, the pop idols of the 70s and 80s, with wild hair, glittering jackets, and melodies that had a way of finding their way into your heart. These were the stars whose music didn't just top the charts. It became part of our everyday memories. Now, time has taken them down different paths. Some continue to follow their passion. Some have quietly stepped out of the spotlight. And others, sadly, were lost to fame, addiction, or illness. In this video, we'll take a look back at the past and present of the voices that once defined our youth. Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson, the king of pop, ruled the charts and redefined pop culture with a single moonwalk. A global phenomenon. He had a fan base larger than the population of many countries, but behind the spotlight was a long string of controversies that stretched as far as his world tours, from drastic surgeries to legal scandals that still spark debate to this day. His legacy remains both worshipped and dissected, as if it were the subject of an endless true crime documentary on Netflix. Paul McCartney, The Beatles. Read Jaithir. 1 words. As the romantic heart of the Beatles, Paul McCartney penned timeless love songs like Let It Be and Yesterday. Not just a brilliant songwriter, he's a living legend who somehow outlasted every era, even the one where John Lennon left the stage for good. Now, over 80, Paul still tours the world, bravely stepping on stage with a weathered voice and a face that's long since said goodbye to his yesterday charm. The most surprising part, he still refuses to retire. Elton John. From his flamboyant glasses to Rocket Man, Elton John once set every stage ablaze with a brilliance no one could match. After dozens of chart toppers and even a full-length biopic, he's announced his retirement at least 7 times. Yet he still pops up everywhere with that same piano, as if the word farewell never really applied. Who can even count how many goodbyes he's given George Harrison, the Beatles? The quiet one of the Beatles, George Harrison delivered some of the band's most profound songs, like While My Guitar Gently Weeps. After the group split, he took a spiritual turn, planted gardens, and stayed far away from the chaos of showbiz. He passed away peacefully in 200. No drama, no scandals, just a quiet exit that stood in stark contrast to the noisy legacies of his former bandmates. Ringo Starr, The Beatles. As the most lovable drummer in rock and roll history, Ringo Starr never needed to be a musical genius. Just a few drum beats and a charming smile were enough to send fans into a frenzy. Now in his 80s, he's still touring, releasing albums, and confidently posting selfies with Instagram filters, wrinkles and all. Because apparently, peace and love also come with great lighting. Freddie Mercury Queen. Remember Freddie Mercury, the electrifying frontman of Queen, who shook the world with his powerhouse vocals and unmatched stage presence in anthems like Bohemian Rhapsody and We Are the Champions. He was the very definition of boldness, brilliance, and that legendary mustache. Tragically, his blazing career was cut short when he died of AIDS in 1991, a hauntingly dramatic end for one of rock's brightest stars. David Bowie. Bowie was the master of reinvention, from Ziggy Stardust to the Thin White Duke. He turned the entire 70s into his personal stage with hits like Space Oddity and Heroes. He wasn't just a singer, he was an actor, a fashion alien, and a walking piece of art. Fittingly, he passed away quietly in 2016, just 2 days after releasing his final album, as if even death was part of his artistic grand plan. Prince, the eccentric genius of pop funk. Prince turned Purple Rain into an anthem for the bold, the flamboyant, and the gloriously rebellious. With his cymbal-shaped guitar and gender-blurring style, he dominated stages for decades. But in the end, he lived alone in his Paisley Park mansion, leaving this world after a tragic overdose, a lonely exit for such a blazing star. Stevie Wonder. From a blind child prodigy to a Motown legend, Stevie Wonder made history with hits like Superstition and Isn't She Lovely? His warm voice and masterful musicianship turned him into a living icon for generations. These days, however, he rarely appears in public, leaving fans to worry now and then as unsettling health rumors continue to swirl. Billy Joel. Known as America's Piano Man, Billy Joel turned life into a musical saga with hits like Piano Man, Uptown Girl, and a string of chart toppers throughout the 70s and 80s. He was once a Madison Square Garden hero, packing out shows night after night, though he still performs. His declining appearance and string of failed marriages make him look more like the old man from the bar than the pop-rock legend he once was. Bryan Adams. If you remember legendary hits like Summer of '69 and Heaven, then you're probably familiar with Bryan Adams, Canada's rock icon. He's still releasing new albums like Roll with the Punches and touring the globe. While he may not make the same impact he once did, he continues to pursue his music career, driven by that burning passion. Rod Stewart, with his signature raspy voice and wild hair, once captivated the hearts of fans. He was the fashion icon of the 1970s and 1980s, known for his bold and unique style, often seen in glittering outfits, satin shirts, and leopard print leggings. He perfectly blended glam rock with bohemian flair. Now, at 80, he's still performing, but his voice isn't what it used to be, and his fashion choices have become a bit outdated. Bruce Springsteen. The Boss, Bruce Springsteen, the iconic symbol of America with high-energy rock hits like Born in the USA, has sold over 140 million albums worldwide, earning 20 Grammy Awards, an Oscar, 2 Golden Globes, and a special Tony Award. Refusing to retire, he continues to tour and release new music. However, he has openly shared struggles with anxiety before performances and ongoing health challenges. Sting the Police. Once the heart and soul of the Police with hits like Every Breath You Take, Sting captivated the world with his deep voice and professor-like appearance. After leaving the band and pursuing a solo career, he added several more Grammy Awards to his collection, exploring genres from classical and country to lute music. Now, at nearly 74, Sting still graces the stage with a toned physique to envy, but his voice is no longer what it used to be. Phil Collins. Phil Collins, the legendary frontman of Genesis, turned In the Air Tonight into one of the most iconic drum solos in pop history. During his golden years, he dominated radio, TV, and even won an Oscar. But now, his health has deteriorated to the point where he performs sitting down and can no longer play the drums. Lionel Richie, the Commodores. From his days singing Easy with the Commodores to his solo hits like Hello and All Night Long, Lionel Richie was the prince of R&B, delivering smooth melodies that made the 80s melt. He won Grammys, an Oscar, and had the world singing along with his radiant smile. But now, he's a judge on American Idol, with a health that's no longer as vibrant as before. Paul Simon and Garfunkel. As the genius behind Simon and Garfunkel, Paul Simon crafted masterpieces like Bridge Over Troubled Water and The Sound of Silence, captivating America with his poetic folk melodies. Later, he achieved great success with Graceland and a highly respected solo career. Now, at over 80, Paul has announced that he's lost hearing in one ear and has chosen to step back from the spotlight. Barry Gibb Bee Gees, the falsetto king of the Bee Gees. Barry Gibb brought disco back to life with hits like Stayin' Alive and How Deep Is Your Love. He was the symbol of dance floors and white vests unbuttoned to the chest. After the group disbanded and his brothers passed away, Barry became the last man standing of that sparkling era. Now, with meticulously combed silver hair and a voice that serves as a reminder of time, he makes fewer appearances. Robin Gibb Bee Gees, with a haunting voice in I Started a Joke and straightened hair that was unmistakable. Robin was the quirky soul of the Bee Gees. While living in the shadow of older brother Barry, he still carved out an impressive solo career and always wore sunglasses as if the sun itself was his enemy. Sadly, after a series of health issues, he passed away in 2012. Don Henley Eagles. Don Henley, the voice behind Hotel California, sang, played drums, and looked at life with eyes that seemed to know everything about the world. After Eagles, he had a successful solo career with hits like The Boys of Summer. He's repeatedly stated that he doesn't like the press, Hollywood, and especially not being asked about Glenn Frey, the former band member. These days, Henley is mostly busy selling concert tickets that cost as much as a rent payment because life in the fast lane is never cheap. Glenn Frey Eagles, alongside Don Henley. Glenn Frey co-founded the Eagles and helped create timeless classics like Take It Easy and Lion Eyes. Outside of music, he dabbled in acting, though fans mostly remember him for his vests in music videos. Sadly, he passed away in 2016 due to complications from chronic illness. Since then, the Eagles' reunion tours have been missing that sweet voice and confident California smile. Robert Plant, Led Zeppelin. Do you remember the charismatic, curly-haired frontman of Led Zeppelin? Robert Plant. He was the one who screamed out iconic tracks like Stairway to Heaven and Whole Lotta Love, earning rock music's eternal respect. A living legend, he became the epitome of an era, with his high-pitched voice and ancient stage presence. Nowadays, he refuses to reunite with Zeppelin and instead releases folk music with Alison Krauss. Steve Perry Journey. The golden voice behind Don't Stop Believin' was the heart and soul of Journey, convincing millions of Americans that power ballads were the pinnacle of human civilization. With his parted hair and angelic, heartbroken high notes, he ruled the 80s radio waves. He disappeared for nearly 2 decades. And when Steve Perry returned in 2018, fans couldn't help but worry, as he appeared to have the look of someone battling depression. George Michael Wham, from his energetic Wake Me Up Before You Go Go days to his solo hits like Faith. George Michael was a global phenomenon with his charm, talent, and provocative nature. He proved to the world that pop music could be both sexy and meaningful. After a string of scandals, depression, and health issues, George passed away quietly on Christmas Day, 2016. James Taylor. James Taylor, the man who introduced Fire and Rain and Carolina in My Mind to America's folk music treasure chest, was once the embodiment of tenderness and calm. He survived addiction, mental illness, and even his tumultuous marriage to Carly Simon, which many considered a miracle. Now, at his age, he continues to sing and play guitar as a form of relaxation. Boy George Culture Club. With thick makeup and the hit Karma Chameleon, Boy George was the most eccentric pop icon of the 80s. Controversial, yet irresistibly catchy. He made everyone sing along. Behind the spotlight was a history of addiction, arrests for kidnapping, and numerous scandals that filled tabloids. Curious about Boy George today, he appears on reality TV as a spiritual advisor, with even thicker and more dramatic makeup. Barry White. The Lord of Low Tones, Barry White, with his soulful ballads like Can't Get Enough of Your Love, Babe, would make the world swoon every time the radio played his songs late at night. Sadly, an unhealthy lifestyle led to his passing in 2003 from kidney failure. Eric Carmen Raspberries, when the lyrics of All by Myself echoed. Eric Carmen made millions of hearts melt. His voice would make listeners cry with its indescribable longing. Before that, he led the Raspberries with their signature power pop style, tinged with a touch of cheesy sweetness. Eric quietly passed away in early 2024, just like his career over the last 3 decades, silent and forgotten. John Denver, with songs like Take Me Home, Country Roads, and Annie's Song. John Denver was the golden boy of country pop music. His love for nature was so profound that he became NASA's spokesperson, before tragically dying in the very plane he was piloting. It's a heartbreaking end that left his fans grieving. Neil Diamond. From Sweet Caroline to America. Neil Diamond made entire baseball stadiums sing along like it was a religious ritual. He was one of the rare artists who made sparkly vests and perfectly styled hair iconic. Nowadays, despite Parkinson's disease, he still makes surprise appearances at Broadway shows about his life. Tom Jones. Have you ever heard the voice of It's Not Unusual and the UK's sex symbol, that's Tom Jones? The man who made women throw their lingerie on stage as if it were part of the concert ritual. With his chest-bearing style and flowing hair, he was both rugged and irresistibly charming. Now, at over 80, Tom still tours and sings strong. But the signs of aging are evident in his appearance. Huey Lewis and the News. Power of Love and Hip to Be Square made Huey Lewis the voice of American pop music in the 80s. Stylish, confident, and always in the right place in every movie. His band was the definition of normal yet cool, and Huey was the kind of guy everyone felt familiar with because of his enthusiasm. But now, after being diagnosed with severe hearing loss, he's had to stop singing. A tragic end for someone who lived through his passion for music. Kenny Loggins, the king of movie soundtracks in the 80s. Kenny Loggins had everyone dancing to Footloose and Danger Zone whenever those songs played. At his peak, his hits made listeners feel like they were living in an action movie montage. Now, he still sings and tours, mainly at state fairs. Peter Gabriel Genesis. From the eccentric leader of Genesis to a solo artist with Sledgehammer, Peter Gabriel always brought high art to the stage. So much so that audiences were Googling the lyrics after each show. He didn't just sing, he performed as if doing contemporary dance in every music video. Today, Peter occasionally appears with new abstract projects, but fans are still waiting for him to sing "In Your Eyes" again. Michael McDonald, the Doobie Brothers. With his signature raspy voice, Michael McDonald turned "What a Fool Believes" into the soft rock Bible. He was also the backup king of the 70s and 80s, lending his voice to everyone from Steely Dan to Christopher Cross. Now, looking like Santa Claus at the keyboard, his voice still flows smoothly enough to surprise you. Steve Winwood Traffic. See? Blind Faith. From a teenage rock prodigy with "Gimme Some Lovin'" to surviving every psychedelic band out there, Steve Winwood has traversed all genres like a walk in the park. His solo career shone brightly with the unforgettable "Higher Love." Steve lives quietly in England and rarely appears in public. Jackson Browne, the most melancholic storyteller of the 70s. Jackson Browne once made America ponder with "Running on Empty" and "Dr. My Eyes." He was the epitome of honesty, introspection, and wistful sadness. Now, Jackson still sings and engages in social causes, but doesn't capture the spotlight as he once did. Alice Cooper, the father of shock rock. Alice Cooper brought "School's Out" and his terrifying makeup to national TV. He was once the nightmare of parents, symbolizing rebellion. He's now a golf enthusiast, playing 6 days a week. And this passion has made him more visible in golf tournaments than on current tours. Cat Stevens, Yusuf Islam. Once the prince of folk with songs like "Wild World" and "Father and Son," Cat Stevens sang as though whispering to your soul on a fall afternoon. Then, suddenly, he changed his name to Yusuf Islam, abandoned pop music, embraced religion, and disappeared from the charts for 3 decades. Recently, he's returned to the stage. But the folk star who once left the world speechless is nowhere to be found. Bob Seger. Bob Seger, embodiment of capitalist America, with his gravelly voice like the sound of a truck stopping in the middle of the night, and his hit "Night Moves," evoking memories of car romances. Bob Seger never needed exotic instruments or choreography, just a guitar, jeans, and some road dust. Now, he's retired, but his music still echoes whenever someone cracks open a cheap beer and listens to old-time rock and roll as a nostalgic prayer. Peter Frampton. With his golden locks and a guitar that could speak, Peter Frampton made the world go wild with the album "Frampton Comes Alive," one of the best-selling live albums in history. But then, the hair fell out, and his taste evolved, and Frampton disappeared from the music scene. In recent years, he's been fighting a rare disease that weakens his muscles. He continues to perform, seeing rock and roll as his own form of physical therapy. Gino Vanelli. With curls like ocean waves and a voice that's part opera, Gino Vanelli made you wonder if you were listening to a ballad, pop song, or a brief Italian opera. His hit, "I Just Want to Stop," made all of America feel like it was in love with someone. though no one could quite tell who. These days, Gino still performs in Europe and Canada, looking like a part-time conductor, his vest always perfectly tailored on stage. Barry Manilow. From Mandy to Copacabana, Barry Manilow was the master of turning sorrow into melodies that made you sway through tears. He was once the king of Las Vegas, where the lights never shone as brightly as his perfectly coiffed hair. Barry is still on stage, with a devoted fan base that would cry in the audience just because his performance is too moving. Billy Ocean. With the hit Caribbean Queen, Billy Ocean introduced British R&B style to American dance floors. He had a voice as sweet as tropical fruit juice and performed like he was inviting you onto a luxury yacht. Recently, he's still touring with silver hair and a warm smile, just like the young man who sang about getting out of my dreams and into my car. Tom Bailey Thompson Twins, the leader of Thompson Twins. Tom Bailey once had MTV fans in a frenzy with dreamy synth-pop hits like Hold Me Now and an unforgettable frizzy hairstyle. Now, Tom performs solo, mostly at 80s festivals, where the audience is a bit older but still rocking out to the classics. Paul Young, with his tortured voice and hair that looked freshly styled from an 80s salon. Paul Young turned Every Time You Go Away into one of the greatest breakup anthems. He embodied melancholy with style. These days, Paul still performs, though his voice isn't quite what it used to be. Christopher Cross. Arthur's Theme and Sailing helped Christopher Cross snag 5 Grammy Awards in one night. He was a brief but memorable soft rock phenomenon. Today, Christopher is still on tour, performing in the same quiet style that won hearts back then. David Cassidy, The Partridge Family. As a teen idol in the 70s, David Cassidy had America swooning with his sweet role in The Partridge Family and the hit I Think I Love You. Surrounded by thousands of screaming girls, by his later years, he battled alcoholism and memory loss. Rick Springfield, with Jesse's Girl. Rick Springfield was not only a rock star, but also a threat to every guy with a girlfriend named Jessie. He sang, acted, and made women plaster posters of him on their ceilings. Today, Rick still maintains an enviable physique, despite being over 70 years old. Leo Sayer. With hair as frizzy as a power socket and a voice high enough to shatter glass, Leo Sayer conquered the charts with hits like You Make Me Feel Like Dancing and When I Need You. He was the symbol of cheerfulness and exuberance. Now, Leo lives quietly in Australia and still performs regularly. And that is the past and present of the pop music idols from the 70s and 80s. They are not just names in music history, but an inseparable part of the memories of millions of fans from that time. Each of their hits is a melody tied to the joyful and sorrowful moments of an entire generation. Although time has passed, those images and sounds continue to live on in our hearts as a beautiful part of the memories from a glorious era that has gone by.